3. Individualistic taxes. Tax defined. Enforced charge exacted of persons, corporations, and organizations by the government to be used to support government services and programs. The Senderco Glossary. A contribution for the support of a government required of persons, groups, or businesses within the domain of that government. The American Heritage Dictionary. As one can see, the ambiguous word government is used in these definitions. Again, it matters greatly whether it is describing a direct democracy truly representing the people, or if it is describing an entity separate from the people. If it is an entity separate from the people would be paying their tax money to another entity with its own interests and profits independent of the people, which is exactly what is happening in most of the present world. The amount of money being paid by the people compared to the amount of benefits which they proportionately receive in return from their investment is negligible. There have been revolutions over much less a blatant disrespect, abuse, and exploitation. But, unfortunately, the lack of education and awareness maintained by this separate entity has successfully kept the masses in a state of sensory deprivation bordering on a coma, unable to act in favor of themselves. The word tax is often a biting and contemptuous word to many people, as it should be due to their experiences described above. However, individualistic taxes are utilized strictly for the benefit of the populace as a whole, with numerous public checks on the way they are spent. No dime is spent without a vote by the people, and all profits of those projects initiated are returned to the people. The individualists therefore define individualistic tax as such: a reasonable contribution of all the individuals and businesses of the union for the proportionate support of the individual desires of that union. A. Income tax. In 2006, over $2.2 trillion in federal taxes and over $1.25 trillion in state and local taxes were collected. Additionally, over $0.9 trillion in health care was collected from the 7.65% of each individual's wage allocated to health care, as Medicare and Social Security. Later in this document, page 90, it will be shown that national health care can be achieved by allocating an additional 2.54% in taxes to health. It will also be shown that the $2.2 trillion, 15% wage tax, spent each year to run the federal government is 71% too much, page 143. Thus, of the strictly federal tax, average of 15%, which is meant only to run the government, 2.54% of it is instead allocated to health care, leaving plenty to run the inflated federal government. In the present world, the average specialized workers are getting away with only 63% at best of the money they earn. Of their paycheck, they are taxed roughly 15% on federal income, 6.2% Social Security, 1.45% Medicare, 5.5% state, 2% local, totaling around 30.15%. This net profit is then taxed for all things bought and paid for with it, such as utility taxes, sales taxes, excise taxes, averaging another 7% of the remaining income. The U.S. federal income tax law is over 60,000 pages long, and just as with anything, complexity is equal to corruption. The individualists achieve simplicity by implementing a federal flat tax of 12.46% based on income, simple enough for all citizens to file themselves. SSI and Medicare are removed, as well as the additional 2.54% of the federal tax which was allocated to health. State taxes will be capped at 5% and local at 2%, and neither may use this money for health-related matters. Thus, the individualist pays approximately 10.7% less of his gross income than the average American. This 12.46% is the bare minimum amount needed to run the government in its present wasteful, oversized, and thoroughly corrupt corpse-like state. However, with the disbanding of the many unnecessary government departments along with the Federal Reserve, Fractional Reserve, Usury, and the countless other depraved actions of the U.S. representatives, operating costs will plummet, and this 12.46% will be more than enough funding for an efficient government leading to a bountiful society. Not only will taxes lower, but also a great amount of revenue will be generated simply by simplifying taxes. 1. Simplified taxes eliminate the deceptive areas of law created and exploited by the corrupt, amounting to over $300 billion in the first year from stopped evasion techniques and reduced administration costs. 2. The Department of Treasury estimates that the costs of conforming to the endless guidelines of the U.S. tax law is about $125 billion per year. Simplifying the tax code will be able to completely abolish the IRS, with over $10 billion in operating costs, as well as a myriad of filing institutions, saving the taxpayer time, frustration, and money by completing a simple form themselves. B. Real property tax. Individualistic property tax is a federal flat tax per acre annually. There is no premium land, and the alterations to it, such as excavations, buildings, utilities, make no difference in the tax. Each individual's initial acre of land is not taxed. However, every other acre, up to 10 acres, is taxed at a flat rate. Land amounts greater than 10 acres fall under the excess land tax, page 82. The suggested amount of this initial tax is $100 per acre, and adjusted accordingly per year to find the optimum comfortable compromise between the union and its individuals. This number was generated from various property taxes, from as little as 11 cents per acre on plains lands to thousands of dollars per acre for premium lands. Hypothetically, if every acre in the United States paid $100, the approximately 2 billion acres of land would bring in $200 billion in tax revenue. However, the realistic number is less than a third of that figure, being that a third of U.S. land is protected and about a third of it is uninhabited or presently uninhabitable, leaving the remaining third able to draw roughly $66 billion annually. C. People's Healthcare Tax. Being that the individualistic society encourages self-sufficiency, which may lead to a drop in available workers, this tax is formed as a voluntary, non-income-based, flat fee divided equally per capita of $4,090 for each individual. Adults are responsible to pay this fee for their children. Legislation shall be passed forbidding tax spending on health care except with strictly this flat tax for the care of only paying members of the system. The tax credit received from the lower income tax of the individualistic society, plus 10.7%, will make more capital available to these working individuals to pay this fee. This burden on average will be $2,522 less than the privately insured previously paid, and $1,800 more than what the publicly insured previously paid, yet $4,090 more than the 10% unable to work paid in the old system, who must either opt out of the care or have someone else pay for them. This makes the total U.S. national average fee approximately $521 less per individual per year than the old system, yet all are covered equally well in the new individualistic system. For the detailed discussion of the determination of this figure, see page 86. D. Inheritance tax. The individualists disband the estate tax, inheritance tax, or death tax by other names, being that 1. All property accumulated was bought on previously taxed money, and 2. A government, local, state, or federal, has no place whatsoever in family matters, regardless of the size of those matters. It is simply an attempt to exploit yet another facet of life for profit. E. Sin taxes. The sin taxes of the individualistic society are in place to prevent acts of oppression, deception, inefficiency, and damage to the environment and to life, especially human. Do not be discouraged by seeing the many new taxes, for only those who are not in harmony with higher thought will pay these taxes. Ideally, no one in the absolute individualistic society will pay these taxes. Many sin taxes are split taxes, that is, they are taxed to the manufacturer to place that product on the shelf and to the consumer or end buyer for purchasing it, before any applicable sales tax. This discourages manufacturers from making a product affected by these taxes, as well as discourages the use of the same. It encourages both to take steps towards more intelligent solutions and keeps the ideals of individualistic harmony in the forefront of the minds of the populace. 1. Controlled substance tax. Just as alcohol and tobacco are monitored and taxed, The individualists propose all newly legalized controlled substances be treated just as alcohol, taxed accordingly and sold only at secure Populus outlets to adults. Due to the nature of these products, these new stores will be designed similar to light-duty banks, with the safety of the workers ensured. Fully equipped with separation of the employees and the wares from the customer, silent alarms, and doors which lock any perpetrator within. The workings of these outlets will be posted on the inside and outside so that deviants shall know that robbery is futile. Experimental and new pharmaceuticals are also taxed. These are those never-ending streams of wonder drugs, curing any ailment while causing 10 others in side effects. These irresponsible toxins making up most of the pharmaceutical industry's product line are more dangerous than any illegal drug to date and are openly marketed through every medium, displaying the industry's brazen attitude as an immune diplomat. This tax shall assist to slow, if not altogether stop their careless actions. The suggested tax, 12.5%, to the retailer upon purchase from the manufacturer, and an additional 12.5% to the end buyer, calculated after retail markup and before sales tax. The amount of revenue generated is predicted to be approximately $49.69 billion annually from taxing $200 billion in U.S. annual prescription pharmaceutical sales and $65 billion U.S. annual illicit drug sales. 2. Excess land tax. The individualist realizes that 1 acre is sufficient for one individual to successfully sustain oneself. Thus, by right, one must be entitled to 1 acre. This initial acre is therefore not taxed, as it is a natural right to have enough land to sustain oneself. However, it is not necessary to possess more than this amount of land, as it then infringes on the rights of others to possess 1 acre also. Also recognized is the human desire for spacious land and the desire of ownership over that land. Thus, the low flat tax of $100 per acre is established up to 9 acres over the initial 1 tax-free acre. However, to own more than these 10 acres of land is an excess, and therefore the excess land tax becomes invoked. This is a tax upon any amount of land over that necessary for one individual's sustenance and one's fair desire of spacious land ownership. For every power of 10 acres, the tax on the new lands shall double. Thus, 1 acre over the free acre is $100 per acre flat tax. 10 acres over, 11 total, equals the tax times 2, $200 per new acre. 101 acres is the tax times 4, $400 per new acre. 1,001 acres is the tax times 8, $800 per new acre, etc. This makes one not hoard land in vain, forcing the ownership to be advantageous and profitable. The owner may select any 1 acre for his capital, the tax-free acre. All remaining tax on land shall be as it was chronologically purchased by total acres owned. Defaults in tax are subject to tax auctions. Partial payment shall cover owned properties in chronological order. Auctions may only be held after the owner fails to report to the court summons after 6 months, and the property duly posted for the same length of time.